today with Lenore Braford from Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge, also known as the Refuge, which we'll probably refer to it for short during this video, during this live, because it's less words to say, and and they like being called the Refuge. So let's see. I am incredibly fortunate to be involved with the Refuge since 2014, because we started Triangle Veg Fest and we needed help from a nonprofit. And the word was you should hook up with a local sanctuary, because then everyone can benefit. So we reached out to Lenore, and Lenore is very particular, which is one of the things I actually love working with her, because she keeps me on task, which I'm sure if you know her, you understand that. So she makes me be specific, which I'm not always, which is not a terrible thing, but she makes me be specific. So we put together an agreement, and Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge presented Triangle Veg Fest for the first time in 2014. And then in 2015, we got our own nonprofit status, and we continued to have them present the event. And they have presented our event since 2014, and we actually love the relationship. And then we moved to Asheville, and they present Asheville Vegan Fest, and we will continue this relationship of raising money for them and the animals for as long as we possibly can. So please let us know that you're watching. Let us know where you're from. Ask questions. Whatever you have. We've got a limited amount of time with Lenore today. This one will be a 30-minute talk, but I'm going to throw it at Lenore so she can share about who she is, why she started the Refuge, and you can see the new chickens on the screen that were just, they were just adopted. So we have a story behind that. There's so much to talk about. So Lenore, let's do it.
Well, thanks, Helene. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for all your support over the years. You really do go above and beyond and figure out ways to support us with all the little events throughout the year that you do. And I don't think anybody can keep you on task. I think you keep yourself on task, and you're an amazing taskmaster. So I will not take credit for that. But we just really appreciate everything from you. I'm really happy to be here. For anyone that doesn't know the Refuge, we are in Pittsboro, North Carolina, which is a small town that is kind of right outside Chapel Hill, slightly south of Chapel Hill. So we are about 45 minutes to an hour from Greensboro on one side and 45 minutes to an hour to Raleigh on the other. We are a sanctuary that provides lifelong care to farmed animals who come from abuse, neglect, and abandonment. And we have around 120 animal residents who are currently living at the Refuge, including chickens and turkeys, who we started with in 2014. We also have goats and sheep and ducks and geese. And we are getting ready to welcome cows in the near future. And we're so grateful for everyone who donated through our Kickstarter and through our other fundraising events. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Suzanne. Thanks for joining us.
That's awesome. So I absolutely love that you're going to have cows. It's been something that for Veg Fest in 2019, we shared the donations that came at the door with the Refuge, and it was intently for bringing the cows home, which is going to be, I know that you've raised a lot of funds. And how is that going? How's that going?
Yeah. So we are so close. And again, we're just so grateful to the community. We had a fantastic gala last fall, and we were really able to do a lot towards our goal of bringing the cows home at that event because of the generosity of so many supporters in our community. So we are very close. Out of the $125,000 that we needed for the entire project, we have about $18,000 left to raise. Mm-hmm. Now, we have been slowed down a little bit because some of the events that we were expecting to have, this spring and into the summer, we're of course not able to have those anymore. And that's given us a little bit of a creative challenge to work on, because some of the best ways that we're able to reach people's hearts and get them to realize, why the work we do is important is by getting them face to face with our animal residents so that they can see the work that we're doing and see the individuals that we are impacting. So we are still working on some ways that we're going to be kind of closing that gap. But in the meantime, in terms of progress with the cows, we are looking towards getting the fencing started, which is very exciting. And we also have been making some great progress on the solar array shade structure, which is a big part of the cows area because it's very important to provide a large amount of shade for these animals in North Carolina, but also that solar element will allow the entire sanctuary to be run off of renewable energy, which is a really important goal for our organization. So we've been having lots of meetings with different solar companies and getting quotes, and we're getting pretty close to figuring out what we want to do with that. So we're pretty excited.
That is so cool. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be able to see it because I've got mirrors and a light fixture for you that are just sitting here. So eventually I'll get them over to the refuge and I'll meet the duck that's named Helene, right?
Yes.
Yes, that I have not met yet, and Honey.
Helene.
Yes, and Honey and Mackenzie.
We have a Honey and we have a Ben. So
yes,
our Ben is a beautiful white duck. And then our Honey is a many-colored duck. So it's as if Ben has put on all the makeup. So it's quite telling.
If you don't know who we're talking about Honey Bronx, who's also known as Ben. So Honey comes down to North Carolina and she MCs the gala that happens in the fall every year, which has been pretty cool. It's been the last 2 years that Honey has come down and done this, and it's so much fun. And then a friend, Melissa, up in New York, rescued ducks and contacted me and said, "Hey, I've got these ducks that were part of and pretty much the schools, they decide to hatch eggs, and then they have these ducks, and then they say, well, what are we going to do with these ducks? So we'll just release these domesticated ducks into the wild, where they will literally become prey or die because they're not meant to be out in the wild." So she rescued these ducks in her apartment in Brooklyn, and I contacted Lenore, and Lenore said, "Yeah, we'll take them. Let's just get them down from New York to North Carolina." And we worked on that. And Melissa and her boyfriend drove them down, literally round trip, really quickly. Met Lenore, did a tour, and there's these ducks that are hanging out at the refuge now, which is really cool. They've got an incredible home. Like you built. Talk about what Paul has done with what he's built.
Yeah. And yeah, those 4 ducks are all doing very well. They're very happy, and they have lots of other duck friends that they have met. But one of the things we do here at the refuge is an animal-centered design approach for how we build the homes for the animals, and then also the outdoor habitats that they live in. Because we're providing lifelong care for these animals, they're not coming to our sanctuary and being adopted out or anything like that. We want their space to be the best it possibly can for them, because they're going to be there for the remainder of their lives. So we try to think about, what would a duck want in a house? If a duck could build their own house, what would that look like? And what can we learn about where ducks come from in the wild, and kind of putting everything together into a final design. So for example, in the duck area, there is individual ponds for each house, and there are porches that cantilever out over the water. So in the mornings and also throughout the day, the ducks have this sort of little diving board, and they like to run out and jump off into the water and splash around and take a bath. And it's just right there by their house. And they're so water oriented, these animals. They want to, if they're not in the water, they want to be on the edge, or they want to be right at the precipice. So it's pretty fun to design these things, build them, and then get to see the animals actually enjoy them and inhabit them.
It's amazing. And even with the difficulties of the time with this virus and the fact that money has slowed down, right? You still took in more animals because they're on the screen with us right now.
Yes, we have some new rescues. So we have 8 new chickens who we have nicknamed the tornado chickens. And some people may have heard of this case and heard of some other rescues who have taken in some of these wonderful birds as well. But in mid-April, in Georgia, a factory farm area where there were a lot of chicken houses was hit by a tornado. And this caused a lot of damage. A lot of birds died, but a lot of them didn't and were just left in the wreckage. The birds that we have were actually in the wreckage for 11 days with no one there to provide any kind of food, water, or medical assistance whatsoever. So rescuers were finally able to get in and pull them out. Now, unfortunately, some people who are involved in this whole situation are now facing legal action by some of the farms, even though they were actually doing everything by the book and asking and talking and trying to work it out. But a lot of the wreckage, including live animals, were just kind of bulldozed over. But the people that were able to get in there and actually get some of these survivors out are absolutely amazing individuals. And so they made their way on the rescue train from Georgia up here to the refuge, straight to our quarantine. And these are some of the roughest rescues that we've had come in terms of just physically how they are doing, and emotionally. They were very afraid of us and didn't want to be anywhere near us for a while. And they're warming up a bit now. We're really happy to see that they're figuring out that this is a safe place. But just the filth that was covering these birds from where they were living. I mean, if you've ever seen pictures or ever been inside a factory farm, you know what that's like. But just the comparison of these birds with the other ones living at the refuge was so obvious. And, shocking to see that, even though I know what it's like. And luckily, these birds didn't have a lot of wounds, the ones that came to us, although some of the ones that have been rescued and are now receiving treatment elsewhere had more serious wounds. But they have some other issues going on, things that we're working to treat. One of the chickens named Wren, and by the way, we have decided to name the chickens after the chickens in this book, Gwen the Rescue Hen. I don't know if anyone has read this delightful book, but we actually streamed a live reading of this with our chickens for part of our Spring Chicken Day event about a month ago. And this is the story of some chickens who actually get to escape and have a good life because of a tornado that comes and hits a factory farm. So it is exactly what happened to these ladies that we have. So we now have a Gwen of our own, and a Wren, and a Zen, and an Adrian. And so that's pretty cool. But one of our rescues, Wren, was doing a little bit worse than the others. And so she went to the vet with me. And it looks like she may have eaten some debris that was within that pile of rubble. And so she's on a big course of antibiotics right now. And it's possible that she might need surgery to get rid of some of that debris that's stuck. But we're going to see what antibiotics do first. Surgery is very risky, especially for birds, and especially for birds who are already not feeling well and whose bodies are not up to what they should be. So it's been a real delight to get to know these chickens, and they had no idea what treats were when they first came. So we came in with a little plate of raisins and, here, ladies, and they're looking at that. What is this? They pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. They have no idea. They've never had a gentle hand touch them in their lives. So they have a good road ahead of them if we can just get them through this initial stage of healing.
And these were egg-laying chickens or meat chickens?
So these actually are ladies who were being used to breed meat breed chickens. So in order to have chickens that you're going to sell for slaughter, they have to come from eggs to begin with, which come from moms. So these are basically the moms who, it's interesting, don't normally get to be rescued because they don't travel as often in trucks, and they don't have as many opportunities to fall off or get into an accident and be rescued in that way. So this tornado, was of course very traumatic and very terrible, but it was their ticket to actually get themselves out of this situation. So they're a little bit older than you would see this breed usually because they were being used for breeding. We estimate between 8 months and a year old, as opposed to just a few months of the babies that would normally be used for meat. So they were there for longer, and that's one of the reasons that they have some more health issues going on, is that they were just in that very confined, very densely populated factory setting for much, much longer. So,
can you share, for those that don't know, who might be watching, they're not vegan or they're on their journey to being, the difference between organic and free range? And is there too much of a difference?
Good question.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good question. It's difficult with labels because the animal agriculture industry basically gets away with everything that they can, and they want to make as much money as possible with every product. So, for example, with free-range eggs, they're able to put a sticker on that and charge more money for that product. If you go back down the line and look at the way those chickens are housed versus ones without that label, the difference is very minute. There might be a small door on the side of a giant building where there are 30,000 hens in one structure, and that door could be opened. That could lead out into a little sad-looking paddock. That's what free range is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say that there aren't some small farms that provide a product that says free range where the chickens are actually outside, but how to tell the difference between that is very, very difficult. So yeah, labels are very deceiving, unfortunately, for people who may be trying to make better choices in their lives. Labels are not going to really necessarily tell you how those animals are treated or how they're housed.
Right, and most of the time they're not treated well, even though it's put on there to give you that warm fuzzy, to make you feel like, and you're spending more money for the treatment being almost identical. Almost identical.
Absolutely. And I mean, I will say that also, even on these smaller farms, we have a number of chickens. In fact, some of our most recent rescues in the past couple months came from a small organic egg farm where the birds actually were outside. Well, in this situation, they were a little bit older and they stopped laying as much as they were in their younger days. And with farms, you have to remember, it's a profit game. It's not about the well-being of the individual animals. So when these hens got a little bit older and their egg production went down, this farm said, well, they're not valuable to us anymore. And they said, we're done with these chickens. We're ready to shoot them. And if anybody wants them, come and get them. So even with smaller farms, you have to keep in mind that what is the end goal? If an animal is not being profitable on that farm, what's going to happen to them, right? So those are important questions to ask, even on a small farm setting. Well, how long do your chickens stay here? Where do they go afterwards? And the answers to those questions, most of us know, but it's important to bring that up and ask if you are trying to learn more about how chickens are treated and what all these different scenarios mean for their lives.
Right. Where does your food come from? Don't you want to know that? And if you do, then ask the questions. If you don't, which a lot of people do not, then you won't ask the questions. And then maybe you'll come across a video one day, or you'll be watching this one so that you can learn. So I've spoken about you in a bunch of my talks in regards to the conversation we've had, where you've received phone call after phone call after phone call every day, asking you to take in A, B, C, D, E, all the way to Z, X, Y, Z animals. And you say no.
We're getting the, oh, I bought this baby duck for my kids for Easter. And now we're getting the calls. They're too big now. They're too difficult to take care of. Will you take in, we're just getting inundated with calls about baby ducks right now.
Right. And I've mentioned how you say no more than you say yes. And one of the main reasons is because you will not take in any animals that you cannot maintain, uh, have space for, which is why you don't have cows yet, right? Because you
That's
need the
right.
space, because they have been offered. It has come up. I know I've brought it up. Other people have, because it is something that you are planning on doing, but you will not do until you can. And yes, is it great to put out a fundraiser to say, hey, look, these tornado chickens, can you help? Yes, but those chickens would not be at the refuge if you couldn't maintain, manage, pay, feed, take care of those chickens. I know that.
That's something that's really important to us. And I know many sanctuaries are the same way in terms of how many calls they get on a regular basis. We all have to say no way more than we say yes. And it's one of the worst parts of our jobs because we feel often, and we sometimes are, the only place that a particular animal maybe has to go. The problem is there's never going to be enough homes at all the sanctuaries that exist right now for all the animals in need. So it is very important for us to make sure we are prepared and we're being responsible, and we're not getting into a situation where we're putting the rest of our organization and the rest of our animals at risk financially because we took on too many, because we didn't want to say no. I don't want to say no to most of the animals I get called about, but it's a big, important part of my job to be able to look at the space, look at the amount of help we have, because these animals do require, a lot of care, individual care, feeding, health care, and making sure their lives are quality. So that's really important. And yeah, I mean, I think with the cows, we are the number one people that want to have cows, and we will get there. We are getting closer and closer every day. And there's always cows out there that need a home, unfortunately. That's why education is so important, I believe, in the sanctuary world, because we can never help them all through our rescue work, but by trying to reach out about their stories and about where they come from and opening minds in that way, we're able to start changing some of the practices and some of the choices that people may have. And in that way, working to lessen the number of animals who need a home to begin with. That's the only way we're gonna solve this is through people making those choices.
Right. As if Franny's starting to growl. So yeah, I love you. Else can I say that?
Love you too.
Your training, right? Before you started this. So some people might be thinking, and you kind of almost hope people are thinking, let me start my own sanctuary. Let me start my own micro sanctuary. Well, you started this, but you went up to Farm Sanctuary. You went up to see Susie, right? And you got some training on stuff. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about if you had any advice for somebody who wanted to do this, because you just said there's not enough places for all the animals that need sanctuary, that need help. And someone says, hey, I've got 5 acres of land. How do I start?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that having an idea of what a sanctuary is and the work that it entails, and then actually doing the work can be very different depending on an individual person and kind of what their life experience has been like. So I think getting as much realistic hands-on knowledge about not only animals, animal sanctuaries, animal care, and the specific animal species that you are wanting to rescue. But also, if you are setting this up as a nonprofit and you're going to be asking for donations, experience at a nonprofit organization can be very beneficial to kind of understand, what does that mean financially? How are we going to keep this thing afloat? How do I create a budget? And I mean, all those things are so important.
Sorry. Keep going.
I see a wagging tail. All must be good. So, it's a tricky thing because you can look out there in the world and feel that immediate need of all these animals that need help. And, I just need to get this started as soon as possible and rescue all those animals. And I think instead of thinking in that mindset, because when you're full, that's still going to be the case. When your 5 acres is full of animals, it's still going to be a dire situation. Just trying to build something that's going to be here for the long haul is much more important. And that's, a lesson that I learned when I started my career in the sanctuary field. I started in the big cat field, and the nonprofit that I was working with, I was privy to hearing stories of so many other sanctuaries that were closing down in the big cat world because of inability to say no, reliance on one major donor that disappears. And, as our big cat sanctuary was able to take in some of those animals coming from these sanctuaries that were closing, there were many that had no place to go and had to be killed, had to be euthanized. And so that message was drilled into my head early, because I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm putting a burden on other sanctuaries, or, God forbid, anything worse than that would happen to the animals here. So I think it's really important, because we don't know what is coming in this world. Here comes this crazy pandemic, right?
Yep.
We got to be able to think about all of the unknowns and figure out a way to build an organization it's going to have something under it, and it's just not going to collapse immediately. So that's why, for me, just, going slowly, if you think that's slowly, and just chugging along and making sure everything is in place, all the infrastructure is in place, the financials are in place, are really important. And I just want to say that we are so grateful to our donors, because people who sponsor an animal, people who are a sustainer, those people are really keeping us afloat right now. And we're so grateful and lucky that we have these programs in place as a nonprofit. So I just want to say thank you to everybody out there, and thank you, Helene, for supporting us in that way.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was telling Josh that I'm donating still to you, to them, to Cotton Branch, and to Roxanne, North Carolina Farm Animal Save, every month, even though Triangle Veg Fest doesn't have money coming in. And
That's amazing.
I don't know I don't know what to do about it, to be honest, because I at some point I may have to stop it, but then who do I stop? You're all equal planes, equal level. So what do I do, right? There's and so I just kept it going. I have faith. We'll get through it. The virtual Veg Fest will come to existence. We'll make it happen. Just like I want to be able to try and help all of you still with anything that I can do that would involve, obviously, the public making donations still to everybody, right? Because everyone still needs it. Oh, and then Deborah, volunteer, 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 right? Blueberry Farm Sanctuary, for Animal Sanctuary, over on the east coast of North Carolina. She started that. And right now that's hard too, because by volunteering you in person, you put people at risk because of this virus. So I can only imagine that part, Go ahead.
I am so excited to go see Debbie and what's going on at her sanctuary when all of this is over. Debbie actually came to us and said, I want to start a sanctuary. And so we said, okay, well, if you want to come volunteer out here, we're very happy to have you. And, spent some extra time with animal health checks and just trying to make sure she had as much experience as she could. And so it's so awesome to see that she started this great sanctuary out there in the Wilmington area. And I follow it online, and I love to see all the pictures of all the residents and what's going on. So I can't wait to get out there. But Yeah, volunteering is is trickier in this time, but something about the refuge is, we have a 20-acre site, so you can come out there and you can look around and sometimes think you're the only one there. That's not true. There's always someone here, but we have been able to put some protective measures in place to allow people to still come and volunteer and do that animal care that's absolutely, the core need and very, very essential. So that has been something that we were concerned, will some of those volunteers drop off, because we understand that people are, a little bit more nervous. They might have career changes or things going on in their lives that make it difficult for them to be a volunteer. But we have been just amazed that people have, really stuck with it. They really, are connected to their animal residents, and they want to keep seeing them every week and getting out here and helping to care for them. So I think that by us putting some of those protective measures in place and making sure that our volunteer team was aware of that and knew what we were doing, we created a space where people do feel like it's safe to come out. So yes, volunteering is, as Debbie said, is definitely one of the best ways if you want to start a sanctuary. If you're able to volunteer, if you can find one near you, even if it's not a farm animal sanctuary, if it's an actual true sanctuary, that experience is very translatable. So I volunteered at big cats. I worked with potbelly pigs. Whatever I could find and get my hands on that I could fit into my life with my work and my school and everything else that was going on, I did. So yeah, hands-on experience is very, very important.
That's wonderful. I'm really glad, Deb. Thank you for asking or saying volunteer, 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 because I know how incredibly important it is. And I'm sure that once this virus passes, you'll have even more volunteers. Both of you will have even more that will come out. And I'm glad you put precautions in place. So, Lenore, if people wanted to donate, wanted to find you, learn more about you, how would they do that?
Well, we are really excited because we are actually launching a Patreon page that's going to be coming out very shortly. And so if anyone's not familiar with Patreon, it's a platform where you're able to donate as little as $1 a month to an organization or to an artist or an individual that you want to support, that you believe in what they're doing. And so our Patreon is going to feature a lot of behind the scenes content. So things that we might not be putting out there on social media or to the wider world, but we're going to get some of our key people who are here getting updates on, how are these tornado chickens doing? What's the progress on Ren going to the vet? And other things like that that you might not otherwise be privy to. So we're really excited about that. But if you go to our website, which is piedmontrefuge.org, you can learn other ways to support us, including becoming an animal sponsor, which is a really special way you can support us. So you can choose an individual resident who's living at the refuge and choose to sponsor him or her. You can also choose from an array of perks as a sustainer. And we have a wish list and other ways that you can give as well.
That's awesome. Well, I know you're busy. And I really appreciate everybody watching and joining us. The dog's going to go crazy again. And Lenore, you are doing an incredible job. Your whole team, your board, I know pretty much everybody that is involved, and top class, top notch. The animals are in great care. So if you're going to make any donations, if you're a $1,200 stimulus check, I know there are a lot of people who still have jobs and the money is superfluous. Oh gosh, that's terrible. If only I could cut that out. The money is extra. So if you want to donate, this is one of those causes, one of those places where it would be a great one to send money to, even if you don't know them, because they're great. They're wonderful. And you can see the chicken. It's tornado chickens. So thank you. Have a great day. Everyone have a great day. We'll be back on Saturday. One thing I'd love for you to do is go to our YouTube channel, Virtual Veg Fest, and subscribe and watch the videos there so we can grow our YouTube channel. That would be great. This will be on there as well as the virtual Veg Fest site. So, and Facebook. But thank you, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Helene.
Bye, bye everybody.